Hey, so Florida had their spring game yesterday. I literally was just trying to record this video, but in the midst of me talking, within like a minute, I started getting notifications that I didn't want you guys to see from messages and phone calls and whatever, all that good stuff. But anyway, Florida had their spring game yesterday. I was originally planning on being there, but obstacles got in the way about 2 days before I was set to head out, so I couldn't show up, which kind of sucks. I was really, really disappointed the night before. I was actually pretty upset, and I was actually kind of sad that morning of. But for the most part, I was able to keep in touch with what was going on in the spring game by listening to WRUF, which is ESPN's radio coverage out in Gainesville, that provide radio coverage for their basketball and football games. And obviously, I was on X, formerly Twitter, and I was reviewing tweets and messages and tweets and posts that people that were at the game and the reporters that were covering the game were, talking about, the plays and whatever. And this is just what from this video is just based off of what I have gathered information wise. I didn't get to see it, which is sadly, but I was able to go on YouTube and look at some of the highlights of what was shown throughout the game. I wasn't going to go through the entire game. I just didn't see the point. But, from what I've gathered, there was some good and there was some negative. I'm going to get the negative out of the way first because, that's just, I'm just going to get the negative out of the way first so I can just end this video on a positive note. And this right here is a giant problem for me. If you can't see right here, Florida it was the Florida orange and blue spring game, and the orange team scored a touchdown, so they were lining up for the extra point. And as you can see here on the screen, there's 10 guys lined up on the field. 10. This is a problem for me because Florida had like too many mistakes on special teams to count per game last year. And here we are in the spring game when Billy Napier supposedly made this hire of Joe Houston as a special teams senior analyst to help out with that department. And here are the same mistakes again with 10 men being lined up on the field. If you saw Florida's loss to Utah last year, there was a field goal attempt in which Florida had 9 guys on the football field. What is it with Billy Napier and his inability to get 11 men on the football field? I will never understand it. It was a problem for Florida throughout the year last year. And it cost Florida, I don't want to say it cost Florida some games, but it hurt Florida in a lot of critical moments last year where they couldn't get lined up. It was a substitution penalty that would knock the field goals back, or there was a false start that would knock the field goals back. And then you had kickers missing chip shots. It's just, I don't get it with this guy in special teams. Napier, for some reason, just cannot get special teams right. That's not a good sign heading into this season with this schedule that he's going to be facing. You need to get that fixed. Another negative that I thought was the run defense. The run defense was very, very, very leaky. Now, the counterpoint to that to be, well, then maybe it means that your running backs are good, and that'll be part of the positives. But if you're going to say that the running backs look good in the spring game as a positive, then that means that the run defense was leaky. And now, granted, it is a spring game, so you are dividing up your own best players into two, as opposed to when you face Miami, you're going to put your best 11 guys together, and instead of having them play each other. And obviously, Miami does not have your talent so at the running back spot. Miami has a good running back in Mark Fletcher, but they don't have I don't believe they have the depth at that position that Florida has. But I'll get into it, but that's further on down the line. So run defense for Florida did not look good at all. Obviously, I have my issues with the special teams. Not only did you have this issue with the special teams, but apparently the kicker Hunter Smith missed 3 field goals in this game. So he might be worse than Adam Mahalik, which is saying something. I really hope Trey Smack can go through this entire year healthy, which shouldn't be a problem with kickers. But either way, those are a couple of negatives that I would say. I guess another negative that, from what I hear, that maybe Andy Jean could be looking to, leave the program because apparently he didn't get a lot of action in this game, and you didn't hear as much about him in the spring this year as you did last year. And with all the competition that Florida is looking for at the wide receiver spot, and from what I hear, they're probably going to be looking for another wide receiver in the transfer portal. Um, when the spring portal opens, well, actually, no, the spring portal is open right now, so they're probably going to be looking for a wideout before they start their summer camp. You know, it's just you would love to see all your recruits work out, but sadly that's just not the case in college football. So if I would say there's a negative, and that it looks like that Andy, from what I heard, Andy Jean could be that portal bubble, could be on the portal bubble, so to speak, and that he could be on his way out. Um, but now we're gonna get into the positives, and what are the positives? Obviously, this right here, Jaden Ball absolutely balled out for Florida in this game. It's partly clear that Montrell Johnson is the number one running back for the team, but if there was a number two, it is probably Jaden Ball. And if we go back to my video when I was talking about Florida freshmen that could have the most impact on the team, I went with the running back position, but I thought it would be maybe Caden Daniels. And Caden Daniels had it, or KD Daniels as he's known on Florida's football roster website, looks good, but it seems like Jaden Ball appears to be the clear number two guy at that position. And like I said, if the run defense with Florida was a negative, then that would mean that their running backs was a positive in this spring game. So that's one positive right there. Quarterbacks, Mertz had a pretty good performance, but DJ Lagway looked better. You can just see the difference in talent, arm strength, mobility. You can see just there's a higher ceiling with Lagway than there is with Mertz. No disrespect to Mertz because he played better than what I expected last year. And this is clearly Mertz's team, and I think he's earned that. Considering the way that he played better above expectations. But DJ Lagway he looked about as good as expected. Connected with Aiden Mizell on a nice, pretty 20+ yard touchdown pass. Mertz threw a pretty good touchdown pass to Eugene Wilson, but it was mainly Eugene Wilson in terms of yards after catch. And speaking of Eugene Wilson, he also looked good as well. 8 catches for over 120 yards and a touchdown. He is clearly the number one receiver on this football team. And with Trevor Etienne gone, you could maybe argue that Eugene Wilson III, or Trey Wilson, as he sometimes is called by Billy Napier, Trey Wilson is probably the best player on Florida's offense, maybe even on the entire football team. So he looked pretty good in his spring game performance last year. Remember, he didn't play in the spring game last year because he was a late enrollee. He enrolled in the summer. And then I think Florida's secondary also had a pretty good day as well. Asa Turner on the left, Sharif Denton on the right. Both of those guys had interceptions. And Jakeem Jackson, the sophomore corner that Florida picked up last year as a freshman. He had a couple of pass breakups as well. And it seems like I would say of the defensive hires, it seems like Will Harris at the secondary position as the DB coach is having the most impact, because it just looks as if the defensive backs are more aggressive. They're more, they're jumping routes more often. They're playing the ball more aggressively. They're playing with more confidence. They're playing with more swagger. They're high pointing the ball. And that's something that would help Florida this year, because last year they were not good at all at getting turnovers, especially in the critical moments. And for a defense that was as bad as Florida was, one way to protect them is to keep them off the field. So the offense staying on the field. And what also will help is getting more turnovers to get that defense off the field sooner. Before it's too late, before they give up a big score. So those are the winners. If I had to guess, you could say winners and losers of the spring game. It would be Florida secondary, Trey Wilson, Jaden Ball in the quarterback position. And on the loser side of the ball, it would probably be the run defense and special teams, specifically Hunter Smith, the backup kicker. But that's just my analysis of the spring game from what I was able to gather. And I'll see you guys in the next video.